The period between the end of the Second World War and the beginning of the 1970s was marked by a strong expansion of the capitalist system. This period was defined by Eric Hobsbawm as a golden age of capitalism. Food production increased and industrialization expanded across the planet. During this period, the availability of products quadrupled and commercial transactions between countries grew significantly. On the other hand, serious environmental problems have emerged, such as increased air and water pollution, deforestation, and global warming. In reaction to this process, environmental organizations have increasingly mobilized against the degradation of the environment. One of the main factors for the expansion of industrial activities in this period of expansion was the low price of oil, one of the main sources of energy for industries. The post-war period was also marked by the injection of funds to recover some economies and support the poorest groups in society. These efforts began with the crisis of 1929 and deepened in the post-war period. Networks to protect workers were created with efficient state health and educational services, unemployment insurance, shortening working hours, guaranteed minimum income, and other measures that, as a whole, became known as the social welfare state. From this perspective, it is up to the state to regulate social life and country policy. The planet's economic and social scenario would begin to change in 1971 when the US government devalued the dollar in order to minimize the impact of Vietnam War spending on the national debt. As a result, the value of all other currencies also changed. In October 1973, the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries managed to pass a measure that provoked a new world crisis. On the eve of Yom Kippur War, a conflict between Arabs and Israelis, the organization doubled the price of barrels of oil. During the conflict, OPEC would even suspend the sale of oil to countries whose government supported the government of Israel. Fuel-dependent industries reduced their production pace and laid off workers. Thousands of people lost their jobs. In the 1980s, the main capitalist powers had their economic growth rate reduced and a large inflation soared. Several countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America entered recession and unemployment increased. Social inequalities around the world increased and large numbers of people began to live in misery. Faced with the generalized crisis, many economists began to advocate a new economic policy. For them, as a way of reducing expenses, states should privatize state-owned companies in the productive sector and let the market freely regulate the price of goods and services through the opening of economies to the external market. It was also stated that the government should reduce its participation in social assistance services, transferring some attributions to private companies and eliminating others. Labor legislation, for example, should be replaced by free negotiation between employers and employees, weakening the role of unions. Such measures would stimulate economic growth, leading to a better distribution of wealth. This economic theory, known as neoliberalism, was practiced in the United Kingdom during the term of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher between 1979 and 1990. In the United States, then-President Ronald Reagan adopted new liberal practices during his tenure from 1981 to 1989. Other countries adhered to the same economic policy. The economies of both countries grew, but contrary to the predictions of new liberal economists, social inequalities increased. In Britain alone, in 1989, there were 400,000 homeless people. In the UK, Thatcher applied a poll tax, a community tax that would defray local governments through a one-time fee. The poll tax was considered unfair as its value represented a very large part of the income of the less favored classes. The previous system calculated the tax according to wealth so that the poorest paid a lower amount than the richest.